Comparative Constitutions. If you've seen one, you have not seen them all. State constitutions usually have many things in common with the United States Constitution, but there are many differences too. The U.S. Constitution begins with a preamble that introduces the Constitution and explains its purpose. The Florida Constitution, for example, also has a preamble. Activity. Compare the preamble of the United States Constitution with the preamble of the Florida Constitution. Box the parts that are the same in both documents. U.S. Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. The Florida Constitution. We, the people of the state of Florida, being grateful to Almighty God for our constitutional liberty, in order to secure its benefits, perfect our government, ensure domestic tranquility, maintain public order, and guarantee equal and civil political rights to all, do ordain and establish this Constitution. So all you're going to do is you're going to read back through that, and you're going to find what is the same between both of those documents. Government rules. Just as the United States Constitution gives its rules for how the United States government should run, state constitutions gives rules for how a state government should run. Like the U.S. Constitution, state constitutions describe the branches of government that the state have. Often these branches are very similar, but if you take a closer look, you will find differences. Activity. Compare how the government is set up in the United States Constitution and how the government is set up in the Florida Constitution. This time, underline the parts that are different. So we're going to look for things that are different. U.S. Constitution. The executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. And I'm going to go back and forth between the United States and Florida. The supreme executive power shall be vested in a governor. So we're looking for what is different. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judicial power shall be vested in a Supreme Court, district courts of appeal, and circuit courts and county courts. So if we look here, I see that we are pretty much the same up until the Supreme Court, but then I see such inferior courts as Congress may create. Well, this instead lays out what are those courts that are created. That's going to be our difference between the Florida and the United States Constitution. Starting with the U.S. Constitution. All legislative powers herein shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. Florida says the legislative power of the state shall be vested in the legislature of the state of Florida, consisting of a Senate and House of Representatives. The only difference here is shall be vested instead of a Congress of the United States, we are going to have a legislature of the state of Florida. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen for 6 years. Senators shall be elected for terms of 4 years. From this point forward, I'm going to let you try to figure out what the differences are. Feel free to pause and play as we go if you need me to read it out loud. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every 2nd year. Members of the House of Representatives shall be selected for terms of 2 years. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives. In the Florida Constitution, any bill may originate in either house. From the United States Constitution, every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall, before it become law, be presented to the President of the United States. If he approve, he shall sign it, but if not, he shall return it. If any bill shall not be returned within 10 days, the same shall be law. In the Florida Constitution, every bill passed by the legislature shall be presented to the governor for approval and shall become law if the governor approves it and signs it or fails to veto it within 7 consecutive days after presentation. And the last one for the United States Constitution. Such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may, by secession of particular states, become the seat of government of the United States. Compared to the Florida Constitution, the seat of government shall be the city of Tallahassee in Leon County. Everybody's got rights. State constitutions also contain many of the same rights and guarantees you see in the United States Constitution. The United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land and cannot be violated. That means state constitutions cannot give state citizens fewer rights than the U.S. Constitution gives. However, state constitutions can guarantee more rights than the United States Constitution does. For example, the state constitution might give more protection for the right that is also in the U.S. Constitution. The state constitution might also include additional rights that are not found in the United States Constitution. Finally, a state constitution might include rules about things that are unique to that state, such as how the state's natural resources should be preserved. Activity. To see how a state constitution might offer similar yet different rights to the U.S. Constitution, compare the U.S. Constitution with parts of the Florida Constitution. Underline the main difference in Florida's Constitution, don't get too nitpicky, then check the statement that best describes the difference. No state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Florida Constitution says all natural persons, female and male alike, are equal before the law. So the right being discussed is equality before and this is going to look messy, but it is equality before the law. Does it give more protection or the same protection? Well, it's going to give just a little bit more. And if you look closely, it's because it says female and male alike, that part that is underlined. Instead of any person, it's much more specific that male and female are treated equally. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied on account of sex or of account of race or on account of sex or to citizens who are 18 years of age or older. No person shall be deprived of any right because of race, religion, national origin, or physical disability. The U.S. Constitution talks about the right to blank, while the Florida Constitution talks about blank right. So, if we're looking at what we're specifically looking at, we're looking specifically at the right to vote. So, the first answer here would be vote. The second answer, Florida Constitution talks about blank right. Well, it'd be any right, not just voting rights. So that, again, would guarantee more protection, not the same protection. We see a blank for the United States Constitution, which means it's not addressed. All working Floridians are entitled to be paid a minimum wage. Does the United States mention a minimum wage? Well, I think that's pretty obvious. If there's a big X right here, that's going to be no. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Every person may speak, write, and publish sentiments on all subjects, but shall be responsible to the abuse of that right. No law shall be passed to restrain or abridge the liberty of speech or press. So, what we're looking at in this box, the right being discussed is the freedom of blank and of the blank. So, freedom of what? And the last word has to do with, like, if we're talking about the news. Both constitutions forbid passing what that limit these rights, and the Florida Constitution says that people can't blank these rights. Here we go again from the United States Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And then we go to Florida. The right of the people to keep and bear arms in defense of themselves and of the lawful authority of the state shall not be infringed, except that the manner of bearing arms may be regulated by law. So, the right being discussed is the right to what? The right to, and it's in there several times. Florida's Constitution allows the state to limit which one of these two things? I see another big X here. No gill nets or other entangling nets shall be used in any Florida waters. This one's kind of silly, but seriously, does the U.S. Constitution mention fishing nets anywhere? Well, again, look at the X. No person shall be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law. Florida says, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, or twice be put in jeopardy for the same offense, or be compelled in any criminal matter to be a witness against oneself. So you're telling me the three rights that are being mentioned here, blank, double blank, but so look for the one that it'll say twice put in something. Or twice put in, you're looking there. And then we've actually talked about the one where it's being a blank against yourself. Think about the Fifth Amendment lesson we did earlier in the year. So tell me, does the Florida Constitution give more protection or the same protection? Back to the U.S. Constitution, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Florida says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures and against the unreasonable interception of private communication shall not be violated. So we're talking about unreasonable blank and blank. This would be the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. The Florida Constitution also guarantees people from unreasonable blank of private blank. So again, you're looking here for that one. There is nothing in this box here for the U.S. Constitution, but the Florida Constitution says adequate provision shall be made by a law for a uniform, efficient, safe, and secure, high-quality system of free public schools that allows students to obtain a high-quality education. The Florida Constitution requires a state to maintain a system of what? Does the United States mention schools or education? Well, again, big X, you should be able to figure that one out. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Florida says there shall be no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting or penalizing the free exercise thereof. Religious freedom shall not justify practices inconsistent with public morals, peace, or safety. So the right being practiced is the freedom of what? It's a First Amendment right. Florida's Constitution says people cannot practice a religion that is in a way that is immoral, not peaceful, unsafe, or all of the above. You should be able to figure that one out. And then we have another X here. So this question, does the U.S. Constitution mention the Florida Everglades, or does the U.S. Constitution mention cleaning up pollution? Refer to the X over there. You should be able to figure that out. Those in the Everglades agricultural area who cause water pollution shall be primarily responsible for the cost of the abatement of that pollution. So again, our Constitution doesn't really talk about that, but the Florida Constitution does, because, well, why would the U.S. Constitution talk about a landform in Florida? We need a little change around here. Nothing stays the same, not even constitutions. Changing a constitution is a big deal. That's because a constitution is the foundation for all the other laws in the country or in the state. Because constitutions are so important, it's not easy to change them. They don't pull a constitutional amendment out of a hat. Usually there's a complicated procedure that requires many people to agree to the proposed amendment. There are two main steps to the changing of most constitutions: proposing or suggesting an amendment, and ratifying, approving the amendment. Compare the methods for amending the U.S. Constitution with the methods for amending Virginia's Constitution. I'm going to go through the United States Constitution first, and then we are going to go through Virginia second. Method 1. 2/3 of the members of both the Senate and House of Representatives vote to propose an amendment. In Method 2, the legislatures in 2/3 of the states vote to propose an amendment. And then Step 2, ratifying. Method 1, the legislatures in 3/4 of the states vote to approve the amendment, or 3/4 of the states hold conventions that vote to approve the amendment. Let's look at Virginia. Method 1. Either the state Senate or state House of Delegates, like a House of Representatives, proposes an amendment, and a majority of members of both houses vote to approve the idea. Or Method 2, 2/3 of the members of both the Senate and the House of Delegates vote to call a convention for proposing an amendment. And let's look at ratifying. Instead of having two methods, Virginia has one. After the next election of the House of Delegates, both the Senate and the House of Delegates vote to approve the amendment. Finally, the amendment is put on the ballot for the voters. If the voters approve the amendment, it becomes part of the Constitution. Last thing that we're going to do before we take our quiz, compare. There is one major way that ratifying Virginia's Constitution is different than ratifying the U.S. Constitution. What's the major difference? Why do you think we don't do that for ratifying the U.S. Constitution? So to find your answer for that, it is going to be right in that box. So look for the difference between what the Virginia Constitution says and what the United States Constitution says. Here's what you need to do to make sure you finish everything today. First thing, take the quiz. You know the deal. 3 questions, 6 points total. 1 point just for answering a question, 2 points for getting it right, 0 points for not getting it done on time. Open book, open note, and open internet. Find the answers where you need, but I recommend going back and listening to the video to find answers. Then we need to complete the review activities. They're checked for completion, and answers are provided on the following slides, along with guidance and instructions to find the correct answers. So make sure that you are following along with everything that happens on the next couple slides, and we get our work done on time.